Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have the Fantastic Four animated series. It's an animated series. It's from 1994. Roger Corman at the same time was making a film that was, I think, meant to be bad, but it's actually technically better than this. Um, yes, the cartoons in these days. This is made by Spawn International for Fox Kids, and yes, it's focused at kids. So much so. There's no adult logic in this, even though, yes, a really big chunk of this was based on the original stories from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in 1961. Um, down to their origin, them deciding, you know what, hey, we just crash landed our spaceship after getting bombarded by cosmic rays that was also mixed with something else in this time, which made us turn into people with special abilities, and immediately we're just gonna we're gonna use these powers to become superheroes. Like, I may not like Josh Trank's version very much, but the horror, the discomfort, the everything that goes with discovering your body has changed in horrific ways. Well, not necessarily horrific, but also, you're on fire. You're now a big rocky dude. You can now stretch everywhere, or you're turning invisible. Those kind of things tend to, I think, would mess with your head, not just your body, but your head. So Josh Trank's thing got it pretty right when it came to just dealing with those kind of things, but you can't really. That's the kind of story you tell in a series. And this is a cartoon for children, um, and yes, it's literally translating the original stories almost exactly, except for the fact it's couched in a talk show format. Yes, we're telling the first two episodes tell the origin of the Fantastic Four. They're pushing a book during a telethon, raising money for kids' education. All right. Um, but the thing keeps threatening, like, if you don't buy a book, I'm gonna clobber you. Basically, it's like he's just threatening the lives, like he's holding audience members hostage, looking at them, staring them down, and making them throw money at him in exchange for a book. It's like, you're the bad guy here, dude. And this is not the point. That's just what I got out of it. Because it's just a small bit that's meant to be funny, and it's just, hey, you're a bunch of heroes, and the thing just spends his entire time threatening people on television. Speaking of which, this whole interview process is done by Dick Clark. Really, the real Dick Clark provides his voice, and just it's he's interviewing the Fantastic Four. Yeah. And in the process of this, of course, then he's they get to tell their story, how they went up in the spaceship, they got the powers, they came back, got an apartment, and their landlady is really mean to them a lot, cursing them out because the chemicals in the lab smell funny, or there's noises and stuff. Like, by the way, this is the fact that they got an apartment in New York City that can fit a lab, and it's essentially, I don't know what kind of funds they have. Yeah, maybe. Reed probably has inventions. He makes a lot of money off of it. Sure, okay, fine. That's how, the Baxter Foundation and everything else. That's how they made their money in the first place. But getting an apartment like that in New York City, even in 1994, at a decent price, when you're all looking the way you do, you got a guy on fire. There's no way anybody's renting an apartment to you. You got to buy the whole building. That's just the way it works. Anyway, the first villain, even though in the very beginning of the episode, before the interview starts, you see them going up against Namor, the Submariner, because you gotta pull the kids in with some action. You gotta pull them in with some action. And then, by the way, that's the format with anything you watch. Whenever you watch a movie or the first episode of a TV show, the first 5 minutes, a friend of mine wrote a book about this, the first 5 minutes of any of those things are always going to have a big action sequence. Short, but it establishes the hero in a sequence. It will never start out. Any movies that are like action, any superhero movie, things like that, sci-fi, nothing is ever going to start just quietly and stay quiet, and then later action happens. No, the action has to stop first, and then you take a breath after 5 minutes, collect everything, and go, this is who we are, this is what's going on, and now we move the story forward. And even if that story, that little action sequence, has nothing to do really with the story itself, very often it does establish certain conflicts, but it doesn't have to. So in this situation, they fought Namor, and then they switched to, hey, we're talking with Dick Clark sitting on a couch. And their first villain is the Puppet Master. The first real villain in a story that makes any sort of sense, which it doesn't too much. The Puppet Master, if you know who the Puppet Master is, you understand, he's a pretty lame dude. He looks like a marionette doll himself, but he's important to the Fantastic Four story because his niece, or no, sorry, not his niece, his stepdaughter is Alicia Masters. She's a sculptor. Apparently she's British in this. Has she always been British? I don't know. But she's blind, but she's the one who falls in love with the Thing. And in the comics, eventually does marry him. She did in the last few years. A few years ago, she married him, and they have adopted children. So, one Kree and one Skrull. So, yeah. So that's a thing. But in this starts a romance of a Beauty and the Beast kind of situation for Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters. So, through all this really horrible, douchey dude, the Puppet Master, makes people out of clay, like sculpts them out of clay, really fast, by the way, just by looking at them. He gets a really good likeness, and because of that, because it's a special clay, he can control them from afar, like a voodoo doll type of thing. So his plans are really not good, and they make no sense whatsoever, except to set up action sequences. Like, I'm gonna get the Thing to come over to my house, and then we're gonna make him do something, then not do something, or then he was supposed to go back to the Fantastic Four and then fight them. But why couldn't he have just made him fight him in the first place? But that's because the story required Sue to follow the Thing invisibly, and then get captured by the Puppet Master, have her and Alicia swap clothing because they look very much alike, put a wig on, and Sue's sitting in, well, first Alicia's in her underwear, then Sue's sitting around in her underwear, all tied up to a chair. And then the things happen, and they realize that the Puppet Master's doing stuff, and he takes, because people are distracted, he starts sculpting low-level criminals who are in jail and make them have a prison break, because all you need to do is control a prison guy who looks like kind of like Danny Trejo to just take a machine gun from a guard. Like, that's what it took, and we're gonna break out this prison. And then they don't leave, they just hold the warden hostage, but also the warden is controlled by clay to say, release all the prisoners, but they don't leave. And then they try to take a reporter hostage, and then eventually they defeat him, and after all this stuff, and then he comes back, he's like, oh, I've got another idea, I'm going to use my clay to make all the world leaders follow me, and I'll rule the world. By the way, also, he lives downtown in New York City, in Manhattan. He has this humongous lab also. I realize I'm talking about a whole lot about property and rental situations and everything else, but the idea that the Puppet Master, who is just so hell-bent on taking over the world, probably has to have a couple $1 billion to have a place that can fit a giant drop-down tube to protect them from knockout gas. I don't know. It's like he has so much space. He could fit Madison Square Garden in his apartment, in his brownstone. I don't know what it is. He might be down the street from Doctor Strange. I don't know. Either way, it's convoluted, and it's unnecessarily convoluted, and it's not in like a complex way. It's just kind of dumb. And I hate to say that because, again, a lot of this stuff is based on the original stories. And yeah, back then the 60s comics are not the same as they were in the 90s, and they certainly aren't the way they are now. There's an evolution. There's a change. There's an audience change, obviously, because 10-year-olds aren't reading Fantastic Four today. That's just not the way it is. The only people who are reading Fantastic Four are my age. This is the way it is. I'm telling you right now. There's Fantastic Four stopped publishing for a little while during a whole rights thing, between Fox and Disney, until Disney just said, "Oh, we're just going to buy Fox." Now there's a Fantastic Four comic still being put out, and Fantastic Four movie on the way, and you might have seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Say no more. Anyway, there's a little connection there, just a little one. So yeah, it's not great, but it does have a great lineup of voices. The cast: Bo Weaver is Mr. Fantastic, Laurie Allen is Invisible Woman, Quentin Flynn is the Human Torch, Chuck McCann is the Thing. Oh, but Quentin Flynn, but is the Human Torch. But Brian Austin Green is Johnny Storm. Yeah, Brian Austin Green. Yeah, I guess they played different times, but they have two different things. There's two different people who played Doctor Doom at this. Neil Ross is one of them. Joan Lee, Stan Lee's wife, actually played a character for a number of episodes called Miss Forbes. I'm not sure who that was, but you'll recognize a ton of. Kathy Ireland is in this. She plays Crystal of the Inhumans. Stan Lee, of course, plays himself at some point. Robin Sachs played the Silver Surfer. James Warwick plays Prince Namor. And there's another guy who played Doctor Doom, Simon Templeton. Gary Owens, he plays the announcer for the interview show. If you know who Gary Owens is, then you know who Gary Owens is. I'm not going to explain it to you. He's an iconic announcer for a number of shows. That, by the way, the animation in this, it feels, along with the music, feels like it was made in the early 80s. It's got this light pop, slight disco tinge feel to the music, but done with post-80s synthesizers in the weakest way possible. It's just, and there's also like just like this pop song that explains who everybody is. I realize that's a staple in a lot of cartoons in this era, but holy cow, it feels completely out of date for 1984, much less 2022. How it went for 25 episodes, by the way, there's 26 episodes actually, but this one only has 25. Ironically, it's missing episode 4. I don't know why. I didn't go into it. I just only realized it as I was looking at this just before I logged on here. But yeah, going back to some of the voices, some of the notable voices you'll hear in this. Mark Hamill plays Maximus of the Inhumans. Ron Perlman plays Dr. Bruce Banner. That's Hellboy, played Bruce Banner. John Rhys-Davies, from Indiana Jones, he played Sala, and also Sliders and everything else. And Gimli, the dwarf, he plays Thor in this series. So that's kind of cool. Michael Dorn plays Gorgon of the Inhumans. Michael Dorn is, of course, Worf from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Geez, there's so many. John Vernon, which he's a Disney classic, usually a bad guy kind of guy. He also played Doctor Doom. There's like 3 different people at least who played Doctor Doom in this thing. This is crazy. Like they can't. Richard Grieco played Ghost Rider. Keith David played Black Panther. Brad Garrett played Hydro Man. So if you're going to look at this for anything, for any reason, it's to watch beyond the first 2 episodes, which I'm not going to do, is to hear these voices, to hear these classic, these fan favorite actors playing in a sadly subpar cartoon. Like I said, the music very outdated. The animation, again, it's a product of its time. I always say that, so we can't expect it to be 2022 era quality, but still, it's really rough. The mouth animation is touch and go most of the time. The funny thing is that the theme music, the animation for the theme song, is done differently. It's animated slightly differently, and it feels better. But of course, you can't keep up with that kind of level of animation for every episode. You got to take your shortcuts because your budget, odds are, isn't going to be huge, and you need to make a profit when you do this for all 26 episodes. So yeah, this says, by the way, IMDb says it's 2 seasons. Here it's just marked down as 1 season. If you want to watch it for all the characters, yes, the ones I just mentioned, all of them are in this. Of course, Galactus shows up at some point. You got to do that Silver Surfer. So it's, yeah, you'll want to watch it for those as well. So if you want to see them go up against iconic villains, Ego the Living Planet is even in this. And I'm sure Uatu, the Watcher, shows up at some point, but I didn't see his name in the list. Anyway, I love Marvel. I really do. This is just... I'd watch this just for laughs. That's the only reason I can't say that there's anything that's like makes me go, oh, that was a good choice. Depicting that person. That storytelling choice was good. I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. Casting? Sure. Music? No. It's just listen to the beginning and the end credit music and go, I'm a 10-year-old. Am I really like, oh my gosh, this is the music. I connect with it. It's like you're making it for their parents. Or older brother or sister. I don't know. I have no idea what it came into their head when they thought about the music. That's all I'm going to say. Doesn't matter. Let's pick tomorrow's episode.
154.
Oh, okay, we won't have to go far for that. 154. Oh, okay. Well, this is a very easy one. It's a Pixar Spark short. So, and this one's called Float. Float. All right. Easy enough. Did I? Yeah, okay. 154. Float. A Pixar Spark short is up next on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.